And of course, YouTube, welcome to the early January update on the meta currently in Off the Grid. I'm excited to show you some of these guns, mainly because I think they're definitely going to provide a much higher performance rate than my last video. And honestly, I think we judged a couple of those weapons too soon without realizing some of the effects that the latest patch was going to have on some of those weapons. So let's just dive in. We're not going to waste any time. First and foremost, we are going to talk about my fan favorite right now. I don't know what happened, but in my heart of hearts, I'm just going to cope and say I think there was a ninja buff to the woodpecker. I talked about it before. This thing was slapping 39 damage per bullet, but the headshot multiplayer is nuts. And I think if you are using a controller, this gun is a must. You are going to get so many kills. Do not let that 25 round with the mag fool you, or even the 35 round with the extended drum fool you, because they both will treat you well. You're usually going to down your target within the first 15 to 20 bullets if you have at least 30% or more accuracy. I have doubled up on this because of that reason. And even though I may not be playing with a controller, I got reasonable accuracy and I'm able to make this thing go to work. I actually just took it for a spin a couple games ago and dropped a nice 20 bomb. And I just wanted to kind of share that with the world. Now, of course, when it comes to our limbs, we do have that recon drone. Unfortunately, it's just impossible to navigate the map without having a recon. Everybody else is going to be using it. They're going to have the jump on you every single time. So the only way to really counteract that is you also knowing where they're at and hopefully having the jump on them every single time. Now, I talked about it in the last video as well. Ghost is going to be a great counter to the recon drone. And what I would suggest in some of those fight scenarios is maybe have one teammate running the recon and another one running the ghost. And what will usually end up happening is another team is going to scan an area and they're going to try and ape that fight. And because they do not see those other red dots showing up, you will now have the jump on them and be able to swing that fight in your favor, as you can really catch some people off guard. I even had a game where two of the teammates were running Ghost, one guy was running Recon, and as soon as we ran in there to take the one-on-one, turned out to be a 3v3, and they definitely cleaned us up. So that's going to be my recommendation for you all. I run the white Roadrunners. I still really have yet to see much variance between purple and white, other than maybe a little bit longer cooldown, which really isn't that big of a deal. So I'm going to suggest that you save yourself a couple bucks, throw the white Roadrunners on there, and you are going to be in good shape. And then, of course, unfortunately, keyword unfortunate, the Rippers are kind of destroying the game right now, so they are a must-have in your loadout kit. There's a lot of teams out there right now who are kind of getting dependent on this limb, and I'm curious what you're going to look like when the devs take it away from you. Now, when it comes to your backpacks, either option are going to work just fine. Do you want to rip more often, use the limb accelerator, or do you want to make sure those guns stay loaded? And I think with a double woodpecker build like we're taking a look at here, you want to maintain uptime in between switching your weapons. Now, what I personally like to do is take an engagement, use the first Roadrunner, swap to the second one, get a second down, and then you usually can run out with your Roadrunners behind maybe a pillar or a wall, plate, zoom right back into that fight, and finish what you started. Now, when it comes to the attachments, we are currently running the Woodpecker Light Grip, the Woodpecker Drum Mag, and the Woodpecker Heavy Barrel. And last but not least, thanks for staying in, the Enhanced Compensator. This is going to give you a lot of recoil control, a little bit of extra range there for folks who are kind of trying to use Roadrunners to get away from you. And time again, I catch my opponents lacking. And that's free kills, baby. That's 20 bombs. So join in, have a lot of fun with that, and take it for a spin. Now, moving forward, this is going to be for my PC players mainly. I don't have a lot of console folks, I think, who are going to prefer this particular loadout, but we are using the Tacoma, the Kestrel, and the Kiro Shinobi Kilowana. Now, of course, I'm rocking that recon drone, but you're going to notice with this particular setup, I have switched back to the Leapers. if there's anything I can say, I went about 4 or 5 days using leapers, and I didn't get hit by a ripper, which is phenomenal. Not to mention, you can use a leaper, reposition, point downward, and rip downward after you drop a little bit, and really make a super play if you'd like. I wish I could say I'd want to switch this up, but if I were to swap out the the Ripper, I'm gonna go ahead and slot in the Paralyzer. It is a great counter to folks who are using Ripper. You can kind of throw them into a little bit of a mini seizure and clean up the fight and swing it back in your favor. Otherwise, this is going to be your secret weapon for pulling out those ghost users. It's the only thing in the game that's going to be able to counteract that, since recon doesn't have any effect on it. And ultimately, the backpack, like I told you all before, switch between either one of those for your particular flavor. Now, when it comes to the Tacoma, we are fan favoring the Pioneer clone, and you can build this by adding the heavy stock, the heavy grip, the drum mag, and the heavy barrel. This is my number one gun in the game. Currently, you're going to see this paired with a couple of other weapons as I go down the loadout list here today. But I think just with the extra rounds that you have in the mag, it's able to cover really good distances. And the fire rate is what really allows this gun to shine. If you don't have a really strong headshot ratio, this gun is probably going to take precedence over the woodpecker, but again, it's a staple in the game right now, and therefore I usually pair it with my Kestrel. And you all may have seen my latest video, and it's just me kind of stunting a little bit, showing the effectiveness of how you can use this weapon. I usually like to try and go for a quick scope crack on my opponent and then swap back to either my pistol, the Kilowana, or the Tacoma for the finish. Soldier backpack comes in handy, as you saw earlier, to keep everything loaded up, because there's nothing worse than getting a quick scope, swapping back to your SMG, and running on empty. What we have for the Kestrel build, for those who are interested, is the Kestrel Heavy Stock. I have switched back to the 2.5 to 4x. I think I've been able to land more shots with this since the rework of the 3x. Hashtag bring the old 3x back, devs, please. This new one is so trash. Kestrel light grip, and last but not least, the enhanced compensator. Some people like to run the silencer or the noise suppressor for that horizontal recoil control. But me personally, I like to try and squeeze out that little bit of extra range. And then that light grip, as mentioned, will kind of help with the handling. When you're swapping between weapons, we want to get this thing out as quickly as possible, or be able to switch to our SMG as quickly as possible. So make sure you have a light grip somewhere within that rotation, and you're going to get some really great plays, really great shots, and I know that one's going to help you get the W. Kilowana, because it is in that last build, is going to be in this build as well, so let's go ahead and give you the news. Kilowana light grip, Kilowana drum mag, and the Kilowana compact laser. And last but not least, I am running the compensator for that particular pistol. Now, I mentioned in my last video that the Sleigh Baller pistol is really good. I do still stand on that, but I just find more often that the Kilowana, just due to its fire rate with the multiple rounds, is able to get those finishes. Or oftentimes when I'm trying to track an opponent, that last bullet coming out the mag is the difference maker at me making sure that I get the kill landed. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is your number one pistol option in the game right now. Sleigh Baller number 2, and then maybe as a close second, or third, excuse me, is going to be that Tap 9. When it comes to the Kilowana, I think you can honestly swap around a lot of these attachments, but this is what works for me. And folks are going to ask, so I figured I'd go ahead and share it. Moving forward with the next particular loadout, I call this the controller pack. And as you can see in this video, I've been working to show a little bit more love and be less biased to those long-range distance experiences. And truthfully, I have gone back to a more aggressive, upfront, close and personal play style. So when it comes to the controller pack, we are going to recommend the Flenser. This thing is badass. you usually can two-tap your opponents as they're swinging around the corner. It has really great range for you to try and clean up some of those engagements if they're starting to roadrunner away from you. And if someone's trying to get a little, shifty and hit you with that ripper, you can tap them with a headshot and they'll drop straight to the floor. As mentioned, I have been pairing this with the Tacoma, and of course, the Kiloana is coming right back. Everything else remains the same, so we're not going to go over those any further, but I'm sure you're curious how to build the Flenser. So let's take a look at it. We have the Flenser Heavy Stock, the Flenser Heavy Barrel, and the Flenser Laser Pointer. Just these three attachments, ladies and gents, as you can't put a muzzle on that weapon currently, and the sights have no value other than maybe wanting to try and get a closer zoom in on your target. And I mentioned it before in my last video. I just kind of find it unnecessary. Take this bad boy for a spin, and I guarantee you will win. Now, other than that, we'll flip to the Tacoma one last time, all things heavy, along with that drum mag, and you're going to get some great results. And that is going to wrap out loadout number 3. Now, moving forward, I have the M4. This is the Commodore Enforcer version. I just like the blue. It looks good. But in case you're curious what we go ahead and throw on there, it is going to be the M4 Commodore Heavy Stock, the M4 Commodore Light Grip, and the M4 Commodore Drum Mag. Last but not least will be the noise suppressor. I think it just kind of helps out without horizontal recoil. And I've done some testing here in the firing range. This thing is a laser, and it's really going to kind of tie into controller users who have that aim assist. Laser, aim assist, now you got a super laser, and you're going to see a lot of really great kills come out of this particular loadout. You're going to see a lot of top players who are on the sticks using this particular loadout. I think a lot of Flaw guys are using this. Chantel and a lot of those other folks are using this. So take it for a spin, and you're going to get some really great results. But don't forget to pair it with the oh-so-awesome Tacoma, because like I mentioned to you before, the fire rate just makes this gun absolutely murderous, and you're going to be able to clean up most of those fights. 2 lasers in one. These are your sets of guns. I did add the Sleigh Baller because, as I told you all before, I still think it's a close second. But again, I'd swap that out with the Kiloana. And I like to pair this particular kit with the Roadrunners. And, of course, those arms are honestly going to remain the same right now. Just as a recap, Recon, Recon, Recon. If you're not using Recon, Paralyzer is always going to be a great alternative. And then Ripper right now is kind of in this must-have sort of space, which is really frustrating for me to say because I'm so sick of that limb. But if you do not want to use the Ripper, ladies and gents, the Phosphor Fury arm is still super meta. And I think this is going to pair greatly with Roadrunners or Leapers. If I were to go ahead and use Phosphor Fury, I'm going to recommend the Leapers. Just because you can hop over your target, oftentimes they're going to rip past you, leap into the air, and boom, you can return the favor and set their ass on fire. That's always a really good feeling. And of course, we have the Soldier Backpack. Last but not least is going to be one of the tried and true. I bring the Woodpecker back one last time for you because I do think that it pairs really great for those close range exchanges, and it's going to really help get that initial damage out. And maybe if someone starts to push up on you right away, the Squall is still a reasonably decent shotgun. I was a little bit hard on it in my last video, but I do see a lot of players using this, or admittingly, I take an L to this sometimes. Just that really rapid fire rate can catch you off guard. And if you're curious what those builds are, running back through the Woodpecker one last time: light grip, drum mag, heavy barrel, along with that compensator. And that's the enhanced compensator, just to get a little bit of extra range in those engagements when they're running away. The Squall, however, will be a fresh build for you. I do have the heavy stock on there, along with the Squall light grip and the extended mag. And last but not least, the tactical foregrip. Just the main focus of this specific build is recoil control, because when you're busting that many shots, it is easy for things to kind of get a little bit squirrely. And with players jumping around, whether they're hook shotting or leaping or road runnering, you want to be able to stay on your target as much as possible. So that is the setup there that I'm going to go ahead and recommend. I haven't played this very much, but when I do, it's a super cheeky little build. It has the double Ripper arm on there just because, as I mentioned to you, it's kind of breaking the game right now. There's a lot of players who are padding their stats with this. I mean, if you want to get an extra 5 or 6 kills that you probably wouldn't have ever gotten in the past, I highly suggest that you just start using the Ripper until they nerf it, which, again, devs, hashtag nerf the Ripper and the Soldier Backpack, because we want to ensure both of these guns stay topped up at all times whenever we're entering some of those engagements. Now, before we wrap things up completely, I do want to talk about just having not only those basic loadouts, maybe a pistol, backpack, or a specific set of guns, but a couple other limbs that I think are going to be a difference maker. I can't say this enough, and I think when some of those buffs and nerfs in the next patch come, if the developers are listening to our feedback, that is going to be Slam Fist. This is really great for being able to knock people off roofs. You can get to the top of maybe a crane and bait an attack where they're at the bottom of the crane. They haven't quite gotten up high enough yet, and you start to be able to charge this up. Just punch them right off, and you pretty much get a guaranteed kill unless they're an experienced player. If you find yourself in some sticky situations and you're like, man, I really could use a get out of jail free card, I'm going to recommend what I truly think is the best limb in the game, not from a damage perspective, but from an overall utility perspective. And it pairs really good with something like Roadrunners, for example, where you're zipping around all over the place and someone's on your ass and you realize, hey, I need to get vertical. Well, Hookshot's going to do that for you. Also, if you want to tap into a little bit of Mortal Kombat, you absolutely can hookshot your opponent right back over to you. There's a player there on Merciless by the name of I'm Javi, and man, he's got some really great clips in the official Discord channel for Off the Grid. Check some of those out. He might inspire you to start running around and telling folks, get over here, and finishing the kill. Last but not least, and I slept on this, ladies and gents, but I had a game where it was the final circle. They're on top, we're downstairs, and they drop down in front of us with a kinetic shield. The kinetic shield was covering most of the damage, and what they were able to do, because they were using 2 of them, is run together in an army type fashion. Boom, boom. 2 insta-knocks from this bad boy. And guess what? You cannot Ripper through it, right? We tried to make a Ripper play and end the game knowing they were going to drop down in front of us in the doorway. And I couldn't help but admire the ingenuity of that specific strat. Take it for a spin. And whoever did that to us, kudos to you, because I never once thought of that ever. And for the most part, I kind of wrote this limb off entirely. If I were to take a look at the other limbs here, let's take a peek. We've already covered Ghost. We covered Paralyzer. The Buzz Killer is always good. I just think you're kind of cheeky if you're using this, but it's great. I think in those final circles where things start to get a little bit chaotic and there's a lot of like teams looking for that third-party situation, sending your Buzz Killers over to create that distraction or just get some free assists and kills along the way is never a bad idea. The Javelina is kind of slept on. I think if you find yourself using leapers, you're spending a lot more time in the air, maybe using hookshot, or you just want to open up a fight, the Javelina is a really great option to pre-crack your opponent. Let's say there's another guy down below you on a roof and you're on Sky Tower. I would recommend locking on with the Javelinas, sending them towards your opponent, and then diving down for the finish. By the time you land, your rockets will beat you to your target, get the shield crack, and all you got to do is hit them with 2 taps, and that's a free kill for you. Last but not least on the list is going to be trip mines. If you use these, I hate you, but in a friendly way. These things are kind of game breaking as well, but they're more so avoidable by keeping your ego in check. Don't chase people. If they're ever on a crane or they're ever upstairs above you, you need to have leapers to cover that gap, or you could use Ripper as soon as you get to the top to Ripper over the trip mine. But 9 times out of 10, I find myself screaming at the top of my lungs because this particular limb is put to use and I can't push a team or I can't get in somewhere and there's another team behind me trying to third party, and it just sucks to be able to lose that momentum when you're trying to have a really high score game and get the dub at the same time. So trip mines, use them if you like them. I think you're cheeky, but hey, more power to you. Slugger and Skunk Paw, just to make sure we don't leave any of the limbs out. They're good, but they're not great. They're great for zoning out players. And I will say honorable mention to the Skunk Paw, it cuts off the aim assist right now. So if you find yourself getting beamed by a controller player and you're on the ground level, shoot this behind yourself and then get back to roadrunnering to safety. Because what that's going to do is break that aim assist. They're not going to be able to shoot through it, and thus giving you the opportunity to reset in that exchange. Slugger, it's great. Maybe use it when you're getting chased. It'll slow people down. I like to come up a rope, throw the slugger, relocate, and then as soon as they try and rope chase me, that's a free kill because they really don't have anywhere to go. It's like walking in glue or covered in tar. And hey, free kills, right? That's what we're always aiming for. Would I recommend them or put them in any of my active loadouts? Not really. Everything else that I've kind of talked about already is going to be your key components or your key ingredients to success. I really made an effort to speed up this video and try and cut out some of the fluff. So tell me what your thoughts are down in the chat. And if you've been coming by to learn more about what's meta right now in the game, thank you. I couldn't do this without you. And stay tuned because here in a week or two, I'm assuming 12 days along with the next battle pass, we're going to be getting a major patch. And there's been a lot of feedback to the devs about that Ripper meta that I've been talking about. And again, Recon's really overpowered. It's kind of frustrating that you can't even drop in or navigate the map freely because you're always going to be on somebody's radar. Thank you for stopping by. And as always, folks, peace, love, and happiness. Happy New Year.